This is a continuation of our committee meeting. We just moved out here because it just gets too crowded in there when this many people attend. So the meeting started out there, we're moving in here, and we will start with our Services Committee.
I'd like to call to order the Services Committee meeting. The first agenda item is the Fire Marshal's report for the month of March for 2019 and the permit reports for April of 2019. Our Fire Marshal, Dan Stack, is unavoidably away from the meeting tonight due to a family emergency. I would ask Council, the reports were included in your package for your review. Do any council members have any questions on the report? Hearing none, I'll move to agenda item 3. Agenda item 3 is to discuss recommendations to amend ordinance 1032 of the codified ordinances of the town of McCandless, specifically Article 1509, Fire Control Measures and Regulations, to define and establish a service fee for instances of false alarms at multifamily, commercial, industrial, and institutional properties within the town. This item grew out of the Fire Department Steering Committee meeting that myself and Carolyn Schweiger is liaison to serve our fire departments. And I'd like to ask our town solicitor to speak to this change in the ordinance.
Sure, thanks, Mr. Kirk. I did attend one of the Fire Department Steering Committee meetings just so I could speak with the various fire chiefs and Fire Marshal Stack to determine kind of what the issue was and how we could address it. And the primary issue seemed to be kind of twofold. One is they needed some clarification as to what exactly was a false alarm. Secondly, kind of the overarching theme was, the idea is we want to, there's a lot of resources of the town, as I was told, that are being sort of diverted as a result of many false alarms, particularly at larger multifamily residential, commercial, and institutional structures. So we want to discourage, obviously, false alarms and encourage the maintenance of alarm systems. And what we needed to do from a regulatory standpoint is to change the ordinance so that was clear. So if you have I don't know if you have the ordinance in front of you, but we have both the old section and the new section under false fire alarms. And what we did kind of first and foremost was to clarify that this applies to multifamily being 3 or more units, commercial, industrial, or institutional property. We also restated what exactly a false alarm is. And in particular, a false alarm used to be, one of the things that was a false alarm was that it was an alarm system malfunction. And that was so broad as to really kind of encapsulate some of the folks who maybe didn't do anything wrong, had maintained their alarm system, but it malfunctioned through no fault of their own. And we wanted to kind of separate that out. So if you see in the new section of what false alarms are, we set it up so that it's a malfunction due to the failure to properly test and maintain the alarm system, rather than just a malfunction of the alarm system. We also separated out or made it clear that the first false alarm of each year there's no penalty for. So you get a freebie on this. It should put you on notice if there's a false alarm, and it's due. Again, you look at the 1 through 5. These are things that are under the control of either the building owner and/or tenant to correct. So if one of these things happens once, you're on notice. After that, there is a fine or a service fee that's levied in order to assist the town and the emergency management services with recovering the costs associated with responding to these fire alarms. So again, the primary for the ordinance portion of this, and there's as Mr. Kirk can introduce if he wants, the next section, the next agenda item as well, which is the fee portion. But this ordinance itself specifically clarifies what is a false alarm and establishes that first alarm each year is not subject to penalty.
Thank you for that. That's reasonably well stated. Are there questions from council members on this item?
I'm just wondering, was this put on the town's website, this ordinance, before the meeting, or was it?
It would have been, I guess, part of the packet, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, so it was, yeah.
Supporting documents.
Right, and this ordinance would need to be approved for advertisement you know, we would publish a summary and then a
Yeah.
vote would happen.
Yeah, I would like to, just give them a chance to review it before the meeting, and I just wanna know that was done, okay.
And just for further clarification, this is to address commercial class structures, multifamily units, multifamily facilities, 3 units and greater, along with commercial and institutional. So, and again, the goal is to encourage fire protection systems, but to discourage negligence in maintaining those systems. And it's something that our chiefs were very, very adamant about and we needed to address. There are no further questions on that. Item 4, discuss recommendation to amend the town's master fee schedule, resolution number 12 of 2018, to provide a fee for a false alarm and additional fees for each subsequent alarm during the calendar year. Again, as Solicitor pointed out, with the clarification of what constitutes a negligent false alarm, I'll say, is that of establishing a progressive fee for those false alarms. We will continue to provide for one free false alarm. Anybody can make a mistake. That will reset annually. But the second time it occurs, you will be assessed a $200 fee, which is what the previous fee was. If you are a repeat offender, the third will be a $300 fee, and the fourth, it will be at $400, and it will cap out at $400. The hope is we never get to there because we really want our firemen and fire trucks ready, on the ready for a real emergency. Are there any questions from council on this fee structure amendment? Hearing none, I'll open it up for public comment on the Services Committee meeting. Are there any comments from the public? Yes.
Not particularly to this ordinance, though. Something else. Is that okay? My comment is not particularly to this ordinance, which I did review. It was on the website, so thank you for asking that. No, my comment is about the permits. Is that appropriate at this time? And my name is Deborah Sagan, and I live on Parkland Drive.
Council's nodding yes.
That's an
Okay.
appropriate subject for a comment, yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was reviewing the agenda for tonight, and I noticed that there were numerous fireworks sale permits in the permits. So I know this isn't a time for questions, correct? It's just a time for comments. So I just wanted to sort of note that. I don't know if there is a limit onto the number of fireworks sales that we can have. I remember hearing something about new state regulations regarding fireworks sales. So I just wanted to kind of highlight that, and maybe at some point, council or your committee could give us some more information about the number of fireworks sales that we can have and how they are regulated. Because I have seen them on the corner of Coomer Road and Ingomar. I know that they stay there all night long sometimes. The people, I see them sleeping there. They're there very late at night. So I don't know if that's something we should be looking into.
At that point.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure on that. I just know that they've been there very late. And I think I stopped last year, and the person told me that they had been there all night long. So, yeah, it could be security. But just to, it seems odd that there's now 4. There's one on Blazer Drive. So there's not too much on Blazer Drive right now. So I don't know where they're going to be. So thank you very much.
Thank you for your
I
comments.
appreciate more information on that.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Hearing none, the Services Committee meeting is adjourned.
Call to order the Public Works Committee meeting. Mark Sabino, can I have a Public Works activity report?
Good evening. I assume you all have copies of the report from last month. If you have any questions, I can answer them now, or I'll try to anyway. If not, you can get to me anytime, and I'll find the answers for you.
Review pricing for various sizes of construction from riprap stone material under Pennsylvania CoStar's pricing systems, contract number 5610-115 or -15 from Allegheny Mineral Corporation for award of a contract by town council at the May 20th, 2019 regular business meeting. No questions on that?
Are the prices about the same? Did they go up?
They're slightly higher than last year's, not significantly. I think they were about, across the board, about a 3% increase from last year.
Did we look at any other pricing besides CoStar?
No, I did not. The best prices that we've found in the past are through the CoStar's bids. They typically, I believe there's 4 contractors that are on CoStar's, and they put their bids in each year with the state, and PennDOT kind of selects what district, like we're in District 11. So we get better prices from Allegheny Mineral because they're located right here in District 11. There's others that will come down here from, say, up in District 10, but the transportation prices are a little bit higher.
Isn't that what CoStar does, though? They do the research for us
Yes,
to
they
find
do
the best prices?
the advertising and the research and the bidding.
Notification of road salt contract with Morton Salt under North Hills Council of Governments. Bid price of $69.36 per ton, requires ratification by town council.
This is an extension, 1-year extension of last year's contract with Morton through COG. Price is the same as last year's price was. Next year, they'll have to bid the package again.
Questions? Notification of a road salt contract under Pennsylvania CoStar's pricing systems.
This is our second salt supplier that we sign on with each year. This year, as with every year, they first bring this out in February, midwinter, and want us to make a commitment for the following year's salt supply. I held off this year, not knowing where we were going to be with salt by the end of the winter because we didn't have a whole lot of snow last winter. So I held off. We did meet our minimums in in both contracts this year. So I went ahead and filed paperwork with the state to participate in that contract again for the 2019-2020 winter.
And just for the council's information, this contract allows for more flexibility in terms of the minimum purchase that we can make, and as well as the maximum purchase where the price is held. So
Correct.
the combination of working through the North Hills Council of Governments and the CoStars gives us the most flexibility that we can get, both from a supply standpoint and just overall flexibility in terms of the amounts that we can purchase.
Further discuss alternatives for pedestrian bicycle travel on town property along Grubbs Road. I would imagine you have something to say about this.
I do.
Do you have anything?
I have
didn't
nothing.
think so. Good.
Mike is here from Gateway Engineers.
Okay.
Okay.
Bruce does.
Yeah, well, we're throwing you for a little bit of a loop here. Since we don't have much on zoning, I thought I'd do a couple other things. So, I think about a month ago, we had Mike from Gateway come in and do a presentation with a PowerPoint about the various alternatives for putting bicycle and/or pedestrian walkways along Grubbs Road. We had a nice discussion about it among council and some residents. So we brought Mike back out again in case you had additional questions about this. We're looking to move forward with some of this, and as somebody pointed out, we've been discussing this for a couple of years now, and we have it in the budget. So, but one of the alternatives is beyond the budget. And if you have any questions for Mike, we also passed out the PowerPoint that we used at the last meeting that we discussed this.
just an overview of this, just to recap, is, for the general public, is this would be a sidewalk, well, there are two options, but the one that we've budgeted for is a sidewalk that would go from McCandless Drive, the front of Long Grubs, the front of town property, that would go all the way to Ingomar.
Correct. And as I understand the budget, as Mike presented, the estimate fits within the budget.
This is also the comprehensive plan, which is going to be coming out in the next couple of months. This is also part of what their connectivity that has been outlined in there, is this would be part of the east-west travel area that starts all the way up by Oak Ridge and Pine Creek, and that's not out yet, but there's a plan for connectivity in there to be a route from that all the way to North Park. So this would be just part of that plan kind of going forward. It stops a little bit short of North Park. Now, there's a nice big, I don't know if it's called a berm or whatever, on the side of the road, about 5 feet, that goes in front of Tomato Pie and the bait shop until you connect to the crosswalk into North Park. But it goes a long way for getting Grubbs Road, Parkland, whatever goes down to Blazer. And also, we've got a plan for Hickory Hills coming down and being part of that. So it connects several would connect several neighborhoods, get them a little closer to the park.
Yeah, just to emphasize a little bit about what Kim just said, our ultimate goal is to tie Wall Park, which is down by Sloop Road, the whole way up to North Park. And part of that is well established. We have some people here from Oak Ridge, is already well established. The easier part of this is going to be tying Oak Ridge through the Oak Ridge Trail up to North Park. So that's one of the things that we've been working on, and that is the thing that is closest to coming to fruition. And that's also part of our comprehensive plan. There are little pieces that are missing here and there, and we are working through our developers to put in those missing pieces. For example, if we go through with the assisted living facility we've been talking about and the mixed-use facility we've been talking about on Blazer Drive, we'll not only have sidewalks through there, but we'll also have part of a trail through there. And we've been working with the developer of Hickory Hills to try to connect Hickory Hills down into that same system. And we're also looking at hopefully working with the current owner of the Rave Cinema in order to connect the trail, and the trail more likely than the sidewalk. And we just have a new development. There is a potential buyer for the 2 office buildings that are over on the west side of McKnight Road, and they are interested in some connectivity also. So we're working on a lot of things all at the same time. This is one piece of the pie, one piece of the puzzle. If it was pie, it'd be gone.
Thank you, Bruce. We have to finish comments here, and then when it comes time for comments.
So this is from McCandless Drive to out to Ingomar, and it goes in front of the town hall. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but I happened to walk not from the McCandless Drive. I walked from in front of town hall down to Ingomar on was it Tuesday? We had the public the
Planning Commission,
Planning
yes.
Commission meeting. And that's a pretty easy walk, just the way it is. And I don't believe that walking it from McCandless Drive really adds anything to it. It just seemed like a pretty easy walk to me, without any sidewalks.
Easy walk or safe walk?
Well,
It's an easy walk, but it's-
safe walk too.
Well,
I
I
mean-
think we should also think about people with strollers, little kids on their little tricycles, because there's, families that wanna use it.
Yeah, but,
Frank, let me ask you a real quick question.
Go ahead.
You're talking about the section of Grubbs Road that cuts across the front of the town hall? where we're
yeah,
sitting?
right.
And
Yeah.
you're questioning whether a sidewalk is really useful to have there?
Well, useful, in as, anytime, anything could be useful, but is it, I feel we need sidewalks other places, other than, someplace, your destiny is North Park, I assume. And, is there any sidewalks in North Park?
Yes.
Oh, there are?
Yeah, there's
The
sidewalks
entire
and trails all around
Lake
North
is
Park.
circled with a sidewalk.
Are there sidewalks all around North Park?
There's pedestrian
walking-
walkways.
Well, walkways, yeah, but
Right.
are they
Not a
sidewalks?
Road.
Right,
Sidewalk
well,
is sidewalk.
well, that's why we looked at this other section, which was a biking pedestrian walkway, similar to the ones that were in North Park. But it's much more expensive because it's 8 feet
I don't know,
instead
much
of,
more is the right word.
well, it seemed like it was.
20%?
20% of 120,000 is a lot of money to me. But, but if we did what they have in North Park, it takes more room. And the expense would, be increased, because that's what the other proposal was. That's how we started talking about this. We said, do we just want a sidewalk, which is what we budgeted for 120,000? Or do we want to add the bike lanes, which would get it which would be more, which is more of what they have in the, park? That was the only question when this was brought up, is did we want to upgrade to something more, or did we want to keep it what we'd already budgeted for and planned for and been talking about for 2 years?
My understanding of this was we were pretty much looking to do either one of these two things, or look at where Mr. Kirk wants to do a sidewalk. Did we get any numbers on that at all? Has anyone else looked at that other than me?
So, Steve, I did go up there with Mr. Betty and also Public Works, and took a look at that. A sidewalk would be difficult up there, as you indicated, but there certainly is an opportunity to widen the berm, such as the conditions that Mr. Wiskoskis has brought up that we have in various places around the town, where you've got a white line and you've got asphalt, and it provides safe pedestrian passage without the extensive cost of a curbed sidewalk. And it would greatly enhance the safety up there, the pedestrians, the students that use it, the track, and particularly around the high school facilities and events that attract people up there and walk. And it's, we're talking about a 50-yard area there, 50-yard length. I did walk that off. There are topographic challenges. It will not be just pouring some asphalt, but it's quite doable, I think, and deserves as much consideration as this in terms of safety. And given the amount of pedestrian connections that our town requires, perhaps conventional sidewalks are not necessarily the right specification or the right way to proceed. You mentioned earlier that the widening of the road would be not significantly as significant a cost as the curbed sidewalk. And so seeing the number of missing links that we have with conventional sidewalks, seeing the number of pedestrian connections that we need, I think we should open our minds up to other opportunities. And that's specifically why I brought this to the attention of our council, because I know we all want to do the right thing. And I know we want to provide connections in this town. I just want to do it the most effective way to benefit the most citizenry that we can as quickly as we can.
Mr. Kirk, I have a question, if I may.
Sir.
With respect to that point you just made, altering the precise requirements for a sidewalk.
Yes, sir.
I guess the dimensions of the sidewalk, if that were considered by council, I presume that would require some change in the current ordinances? Or would it?
I can answer that.
Thank you, Mr. Betty.
I don't think it would take a change in ordinances. We have that by standard. We have a sidewalk standard. We could change the standard. It's not an ordinance change, it's
What does
a,
it require to change the standard, though?
the standard, I don't think it even takes an action of council. It's something, well, I guess, did we approve a standards book, Gavin? You wouldn't have been around, that would have been,
Because before my
that
time-
would have been way before your time, that would have about 2006.
No, it was before mine, too.
Did council approve it? Okay, yeah, we developed a standards book. I think 2006 is when we last updated it. It has a lot of designs in it for a variety of things, road standards, sidewalk standards. And since we're talking about sidewalk standards, I think it's done by resolution, as I recall.
Thank you.
I guess what I'm suggesting is exactly what Councilwoman Zachary suggested to me, that we inquire with Allegheny County regarding Coomer Road. And when the county next schedules that paving on that road, was to do exactly that, to widen those berms, provide enough safe pedestrian distance on the other side of that white line, so that that can be a connection as well from that upper area down to North Park.
So the pedestrian walkway would be, just real quick, please, thank you. The pedestrian walkway on Coomer would simply be a widened road with a white line change where it is.
Just as in North Park now around the lake.
Right, I understand.
If
On
I,
our-
if,
I'm
I'm sorry, go ahead. I wanted to elaborate on what Bill had, but go ahead.
Well, on our last discussion of this, didn't we say, though, that to put the sidewalk in front of the town hall and over Tingamar Road would be $130,000?
I don't remember the estimate.
Wasn't that the figure we?
That's what I
came up-
heard.
102.
100.
Right, but that's
oh,
a
was- that was
hundred and
with
two
this-
Mike,
for
you
the
want to come
small
up just
one,
in case?
130 for the big one.
But we have 120 budgeted, so it's not over budget. I know that was a nasty rumor that it was over budget, but it's not. It's well under budget, $8,000.
So I think my main primary question is, if we were to decide not to do this one, is it even within reason to consider this one up here on 19 this year? It's not something that's going to happen this year, correct?
What one on 19?
The one that Mr. Kirk was talking about, that runs from basically from the car dealer, the last car dealership south to Forest View,
And I'll
which
point
is
out,
gonna take excavation of retaining, to me, excavation of retaining wall and a road widening.
I know the residents up there have been patiently waiting, hoping, advocating for this for over a decade, since the Wexford Flats work was done. So just to put it into context for everyone.
Right, we also have the question of, as we were talking about last week in a group that I was talking with, out of the last $800,000 that's gone in, it's all gone into Wexford. The last $800,000 in sidewalks is all going into the same place. No one else is.
I made that point, that's the importance of connecting it to some pedestrians.
Right, but how are we going to,
Precisely.
if we keep going with that, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't be doing it with them, but then we have Reineman Road, sorry, not Reineman, Reichhold, whatever that road is up there.
Reineman.
Reichhold and Richard, and do we start connecting all of those people too? Do we do everything in?
I think that's what the comprehensive plan says that we should do, is we should try and connect the communities to the business
Correct,
centers.
but they're talking about
whether it be-
everywhere.
Whether it be Ingomar, whether it be South 19,
No,
Wexford
they
Flats.
actually
They've got-
propose 5 corridors.
Yes.
And while it would be lovely to be able to connect every single neighborhood to every single business area to everywhere, what was proposed in there was, 5 major corridors. And of course, this would be one of them. So we could either go through every section of the town and then try to prioritize them in some way. I'm not sure how we would evaluate that, almost like a pedestrian traffic study, and then prioritize which one we think is a higher priority, or we could move forward with what we have budgeted for and what we already have planned for, and then we could ask Gateway to evaluate this possible area that you're talking about, to come back with a plan, and then when we do our budget this year, look at the plan, see what it says, see if it's feasible, see what would be involved. If it is just widening of the road, then see when that road is due to be paved again, because it would make sense to do it when that road was gonna be paved again. Maybe it's gonna be paved soon, maybe it's not gonna be paved for a while. But to do it and then to pave it and do it again would be a waste of money. So that's my recommendations. My recommendation is to move forward with what we have, what we were planning to do, and then look at several different areas and then say, what do we want to do next?
I guess I would advocate for a more objective process, similar to the way that we grade and make our transportation decisions that you alluded to. We take a look at our road infrastructure right now, our stormwater infrastructure. We inventory it, we evaluate it, we look at traffic counts, and we do what makes the most sense, and that's why we have such a great roads program. I'd like to see a sidewalk program and pedestrian corridor program instituted the same way,
With new pavement, yes.
the same way,
Right, I agree with that.
with an objective evaluation process with an inventory, and not just by council just talking about it and spending taxpayer money. But let's make sure that we're doing the right thing.
Would it be possible for the engineers to come up with an objective process like that and then let us review it?
Before, if I may, when we did the comprehensive plan, the priority system that we came up with was, it wasn't just sitting around. I mean, we did it, we got input from a wide variety of sources. We had I think we had 4 or 5 open houses. People come in, and one of them specifically was connectivity. And we had people mark up where they thought we should have more connectivity. So we sought input from the public on that, and had a lot of input from the public on that through a variety of sources, not only the survey, the initial survey that we did, but from the steering committee and from a lot from the public. And I think a few people were here, were at that public meeting. So we did try to get input from the public about where they thought the connectivity should be. So that's how we came up with the priorities that we have on there. And in addition, Mr. Kirk, I wanted to, you'd mentioned Kuma Road. I've also met with the county. The county has a group of connectivity projects. Some of them overlap with what we want to do. We have our Babcock Corridor project. The county wanted to make that even bigger than what we did. Coincidentally, they thought that the one that we had, it was just the same part, tying Vincentian, the new Vincentian to the Vincentian that was built down at the south end of Babcock. But they wanted to look at doing bike trails also. And so we will be working with them through that project, as well as we have the potential for getting some grant money for that to help. Plus, we have a lot of developer money going into that, and a lot of sidewalks going in already. So we're tying some of those sidewalks that we have prioritized in the comp plan. We're already working on some of those. And that, I don't know if objective is the right word, but those priorities were achieved through public input.
Those 3 areas are an east-west shared area along, that follows Pine Creek, north-south corridor Babcock-Coomer, which is one you mentioned too, and then a north-south transport in the Harmony Trail corridor from Waldport Park to Pine Township. Those were the 3 areas that comprehensive plan and the citizens came up with as being something to start with.
And we can continue that process. And I think what you're saying fits into the process that we've already established, fits in very well. I mean, it's not going to end with that. And the question always is, where are we getting the money to do it all? So that's always, I mean, it's going to take a lot of work, and it's going to take a few years. It's not none of it's happening overnight.
About 30 million. So at this point, are we thinking of talking about making a decision towards this existing one that we've already discussed?
Well, council had already approved doing this.
Right.
If we're gonna change it, then we have to make a decision to change it, but it
Right.
was already in the budget.
It's in
It was
the
already-
budget.
It was already in the budget, we had discussed it and said we were gonna do it, but now if you wanna change it, then that's what we have to,
I would like to see it go forward and
would like
still
to
do
see it
this
go
other
forward.
stuff.
right.
But look into what we have to do, because I do not think this other stuff is this year's. I don't think we haven't even started deciding where we're gonna dig, how much of a retaining wall, anything like that. Is council done discussing this for now? Can we bring up let other people talk and see what they have to say?
I think so.
Does Gateway have anything to say? I don't think he has anything to say.
We need to be thinking about making a decision for this, to go forward or to not go forward.
We're not going to let the public discuss it first?
No, absolutely, but,
Okay,
we
so we
need to
can
be-
open it up to public comment now?
yeah, that's right.
Good. Does anyone from the public have anything to discuss on this? We've got at least two.
Hi, it's Mike Aitken. I live in Parkland Drive, nearby. Yeah, so I just want to add a few points in support of the initiative to basically finish the job of building pedestrian walkways along the Pine Creek area, and specifically finishing off this last section. The way I see it when you look at the map is that it's, you want to, pedestrians are trying to get to the park. That's where they want to go and walk and be healthy, as opposed to sort of drive their cars and park at commercial property. I think there is this investment. It sounds like a relatively small thing to do to finish this walkway, and then perhaps one small chunk of McCandless Drive to connect up to the Blazer development and all the way through. And there's a lot of people living along this corridor that could benefit from that. I think to the point about safety of this section right here, I think it is a safety concern. I am one of the parents who walks with a stroller along here, and it is a dangerous stretch of road with the tightening of the bridge, etc. And I have seen other parents with strollers along there, and I think it is a genuine safety problem that could be fixed by this. And then I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people in Hickory Hills that could benefit from that. I kind of mentioned that. And then, I think it makes sense because it leverages existing investments of the walkways that are already there. There's short pieces that need to be connected up, and the study has already been done by Gateway. And I also think that perhaps at this point in time, the alternatives are not well documented. It wasn't clear it certainly wasn't clear to me what the alternative would be. And I think this is very clear cut and it just makes sense. So, yeah, thank you.
Guess I'm up. Hi, my name is Robert J. Casey. I live at 10030 Timbara Court in the Oak Ridge Plan. And long before there were all these studies, we had met with the town of McCandless and we had requested a walkway be built between Oak Ridge and the Flats. And then when the rebuild came along, we really thought we were going to get it. They did widen the road all the way from Forest View or Longview all the way down to the bottom of Pine Creek Road. So it's beautiful. There's plenty of area to walk. But there's one section that's literally as long as this building that has literally a 6-inch walkway. And the kids come over from the high school, the athletes run through our neighborhood. Matter of fact, when I sent a note out to some of our neighbors, a neighbor called me and he said that he was coming down the road and a woman was pulling out of Firestone, and she failed to look to the right to see that there were a trail of kids running this little 6-inch area, and she almost ran the kids over. So our issue isn't an issue of connectivity, it's an issue of safety. And it really isn't very far. There's a hillside there, so if you just straighten the hillside out and put in a straight wall like they have over by the Great Wall, it can't be that expensive. And it's something that we've been asking for an awfully long time. We've been very patient. But what's the cost going to be when a distracted driver comes driving down the road on a cell phone and runs one of our youth over, or one of our adults who's going up to get their car from one of the car dealerships? So we just humbly ask you to please prioritize this because it's a matter of safety. Thank you for your time.
I'm Peter Longini. I live at 10027 Oak Ridge Drive, and I'd like to underscore the importance of what our neighbor from Timbera Court just mentioned, and that is that I've been on Oak Ridge now for 30 years, and I've talked to public officials at different times about the possibility of extending the sidewalk along that very stretch that was being discussed there. It would, in addition to making the neighborhood of roughly 100 homes much more readily accessible to the businesses and services on the flats, but it would also largely be a safety thing. I have myself been somewhat terrified at having to make that stretch of 30, or was it 50 yards? Whatever that distance is. It's a short distance, but it's a dangerous one because there's traffic that is generally going at somewhere around 50 miles an hour at that point. So it is a fairly small segment, and I value pedestrian connectivity township-wide at this, but I have a particular concern for that one stretch, which not only would expand the connectivity, but also significantly improve the safety of people that live in my neighborhood. So I would strongly support the efforts to. It doesn't have to be, some sort of gilded sidewalk with embellishments. It would simply, if it were simply wide enough for people to walk in some safety, that would be plenty. And of course, if it could be upgraded over time, but I would strongly support that as a priority. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Sean Rogers. I live over on Ingomar Road, off of Ingomar Road, about halfway between Brewster's and Coons. So I'm not living in the area that these gentlemen are discussing. I think it's very important that we address urgent critical issues like where kids are walking in danger quickly. I would just like to also ask that that we focus on the comprehensive view as much as possible, so that there would be a safety issue with being a driver and having the roads go from a widened road to a sidewalk here, another kind of sidewalk there, and then widened road there, because on paper it looked like an efficient way to connect things, but then as you're driving you don't know what to expect, and we end up with sort of a mismatch of kinds of walkways. We all know what kind of walkway goes around North Park, and we know to expect it, but if you go around a bend and all of a sudden the road's wider, and then you go around another bend and then there's a sidewalk, that's a safety issue as well. So other than the critical safety patches that need to be made, it's just a vote in favor of a comprehensive plan.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeff Jeserich. I live at 10090 Oak Ridge Drive with some of these nice people. I used to take my children out in jogging strollers many years ago. I worked with Mr. Betty a number of times, and we discussed a number of different options, probably 8-10 years ago, before we gave up because it appeared to be stonewalled when the project in the flats was finished. We met with Sarah Kennedy, who worked for Mr. Terzai. It just didn't seem like anything could happen. We needed $200,000. We were told to raise it ourselves. Mr. Betty proposed a very nice third solution. I believe Hillcrest is a right-of-way, that is a road. It was designed to go through to North Allegheny initially. It's still on the maps like that, and we had discussed maybe trying to put a path through, a walking path or a bike path. I think this is a good time to mention this. Maybe Gateway could consider that option. I'm not sure about all the clearances with those properties, but I'd like to visit that again. And I appreciate your time and consideration. Thank you. Feel free to contact me and some of our neighbors if you want our input. I'm sorry we missed your connectivity meeting. Thank you.
Paul Heckman, 380 Mohican Avenue. I've been looking at this since the last time we looked at this during the presentation, And one of the things that caught my eye was, one, driving several times now through the bridge area where we said we really can't do anything about that constriction there because it's a new bridge, obviously not scheduled to go anywhere. I noticed we have a bridge right here at the back of our parking lot. And my question is a compromise possible where we can provide connectivity down through here, through the town hall property, all this property that we own across the bridge here? I'm betting even if we put in a two separate bridges, one that each went one way, we can connect through the rest of our property to Ingomar Road and have money left over for making the other property as safe as it can be. And I'm looking at the bridge and going, when you have strollers, bikes, each trying to get by each other and traffic coming around there, yeah, that's just patently unsafe. There's no good way to do that, and it's a much wider section than bridging over a short pedestrian walk back here. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm waiting for the wall to Pine walk for myself, but.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Good evening, Deborah Sagan, Parkland Drive right here. And when I looked at the agenda tonight and I saw that we were discussing alternatives for this walkway, I figured it was because of the 3 plans that we were looking at, and wasn't really expecting to throw another shoe in the ring. But I appreciate what you're saying. I think that's a PennDOT road up there. I don't know how much, emphasis or organization we have or can work with the people in Oak Ridge. Certainly they do have a viable concern and should be looked into by council. But I think our 3 alternatives here, we have also been waiting for a long time for this road. And I really have to say I think it is a little bit negligent safety-wise, and also just because this is our town municipal complex and we have no other way to access it other than by car. And we have all of these amenities here. Our own town building is not accessible by anybody except if you have a car safely. And I have the same safety concern myself. I live right here. I use Grubbs Road to walk a lot of places. I sent Marie a couple pictures of people that I just happened to see using McCandless Drive who love that sidewalk over there. A man who was running on Grubbs Road in the middle of the road that also, just like the kids that and I was a teacher, and I had, at North Allegheny, I had many concerns about those kids running cross-country practice. So, and they were right here on Grubbs Road as well. But I think we need to look at what we have as far as a plan goes right now, and with all due respect for the Oak Ridge residents, put that on the priority list. I was a member of the Implementable Planning Commission. We had many meetings. This is honestly the first time I've heard this section concern, and I appreciate what you're saying. And I think it should be put on some sort of a, priority. With Bruce, we worked on the Implementable Planning Commission together, so we know how we prioritize safety as well. So I think I applaud council for looking at this Grubbs Road plan. It's been a long time in coming. Again, it's a safety issue. I think we need to make people don't even know that Devlin Park exists and how many, and I'm not minimizing your safety issue at Oak Ridge. I think that's important, but also there's a safety issue here on Grubbs Road with people walking. And I'm sorry, Greg, I couldn't hear where you said you walked from, but it's certainly unsafe to walk on this road. So I hope that we follow through and have the Grubbs Road sidewalk, whichever one of these alternatives best fits our needs. And just to comment on the alternatives, actually, as a cyclist, a runner, a walker, a health and fitness advocate, whatever Gateway comes up with that they think is viable, if we can, I think there should be some kind of a separation between the cars, not like in the park. There is no separation, but people are expecting, that type of a situation as we see in the park. You're expecting that, but here, I know in Pine I've seen it's like an upside down curve the sidewalk is raised a little bit, and it's a path. So whatever you come up with, I think that we should definitely look at this plan that's been done and save ourselves some money right now and follow through on what we have already budgeted for. If you have any questions for me, I'd be glad to answer them, even though you can't answer questions. But thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Stephanie King. I live up in Oak Ridge Drive also. And I'm just reading your email, and it says that 2 alternatives presented on April 8th will be compared with at least one other potential project that would link the sidewalks, which we're all talking about from Oak Ridge. And so I'm almost getting the feeling that with this budget, this first plan, this bike path, McCandless Drive and Grubbs Road is already done deal. And yet, according to this email, it says that we're going to have discussion, that all of this is going to be taken into account. And so why can't that budget be looked at, spread out to all of this then? I don't feel as though that's being taking place tonight. You kind of mentioned that more objective kind of view. Even though this bike path with McCandless Drive may have been discussed earlier, according to your email, it says that these alternatives, as well as the one other potential project, which is ours, the sidewalk with the Wexford Flats, would be discussed and be considered just as much a priority, and I'm sensing it's not.
Excuse me, ma'am, where is that email from?
This is your email. This is your Town of McCandless that came out on Friday, May 3rd. Yeah, I mean, it's just, I get the emails from McCandless. So I just printed out sections of it.
I don't believe it was sent by any of us. It does say from Town of McCandless.
Is it McMahon?
Yeah, I printed out just the pages that address this.
Okay.
I'm not sure where it says it.
I could send you a copy of the email if you'd like me to.
Okay, I just wasn't.
So I just am saying that I think it should be considered just as importantly as the others. That's all. Thank you.
Toby and then John.
She's saying May 3rd. Toby wasn't here.
So John.
Said that, that's not what's on the agenda.
Yeah, maybe it would be.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Are there any other comments from people?
Rita Martin, Grubbs Road. There are so many priorities, but I'm so grateful that you are moving forward with something that is good, something that will make this area safe. This is, if we have a center of town, this is it. And with the pending development of Blazier and everything around it and the park, I think it makes so much sense to move forward with this connectivity. Our sprawling town needs to start somewhere, but I do agree that what needs to be done up there in Oak Ridge is important. And you put money aside. You had someone look and develop this plan, and now all of that money in developing seems to have been wasted. I'd like to move forward with this, and then the next plan has to be what you said. It just makes sense. I think we're going in circles otherwise. Thank you.
Thank you.
Don't worry about my finger, it's okay. Jim Northup, 10064 Oak Ridge Drive. Moved here in '94. Love the place. And when I came here, I'm legally blind, and Oak Ridge has many close options for a blind person to walk to. However, there are obstructions, and the location for my house, as nice as it is very dangerous for me to get anywhere if I want to walk. I got a job downtown, and I took the bus. And the bus stopped at the top of the hill there. And as they came around the corner from coming down off the flats, the bus driver would stop and pick me up. Then the transit authority took that stop away, and I didn't have another option. So I got a ride to work, and then I could get the bus home, but I had to go and stop over where the theater was. And then I had to walk from there all the way, all the way across by the Eagle and through that area, and then get back to Oak Ridge. Well, that was a problem because, you know, the width of the highway is very narrow. So what I started to do is cut my way through the brush to get from where the 19 went up the hill and where the ballparks, the Vestal ballparks, and then I connected. Eventually, after a few weeks, I had cut enough brush so that I could get to Oak Ridge Drive. And then I have created a trail there already, a nice walking trail, and it walks from the bottom of the hill at Oak Ridge all the way over to the ball fields. Then I decided that maybe I can't get to the flats, so I thought of a couple of ideas, and I went around the neighborhood and took a poll about asking people what they thought. And Jeff and I then approached the town, and we thought we had a solution, but that was almost, 8 years ago? At least 8 years ago. And we had this whole idea that you're talking about now planned, but we were told there was no possible way to do it because of obstructions there. But we're right. We got to get going now. And yes, talk about the project.
The township, though, has been nice to you because they put a lot of asphalt down in your trail.
Oh, yes, they did. Thank you very much. Yes, thanks for that.
Well, Jim, I gotta tell you, Jim has done a lot of maintenance on that trail. I mean, we provide the asphalt, but Jim spread it.
Mhm. I love doing it. I mean, I love out of doors and the ability to have movement and have it safe. That is the most important thing. And saying that there are almost 100 homes, and many children go to the school, and that project should be attacked also, because then the kids could walk without getting out on the highway there and getting over to the school. That's another project that should be looked at, and it's within the range, and it's also within the I think the access.
Are you
Not too
talking
many
about Wexford Flats? Is
Mhm.
that just
Yeah,
Flats?
yeah, Wexford Flats.
Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, around Oak Ridge Drive, there are many options to get to places, but right now, we don't have the access because nobody's come up with a decision yet, and I hope that it'll be on your table when you talk about it. Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience have any comments? Okay, hearing none, we close the Public Works Committee meeting.
I call the order of the zoning committee meeting for May 13th, 2019. First thing on the agenda is a notification of a recommendation to schedule a special meeting on June 11th, 2019 to consider adoption of the town's implemental comprehensive plan. Jimmy?
Unfortunately, June 11th is no longer available as an option. So what we have is the day after the Planning Commission meeting. We originally planned, all my people were leaving. We had originally planned to have what we were hoping to do is have a joint Planning Commission meeting, a steering committee meeting, and town council meeting, rather than have 3 separate meetings. Let's do it all at once. Save everybody a lot of aggravation, and everybody's hearing the same thing. So we planned to do it at the Planning Commission meeting in June. That didn't work because we carried everything over from May to June, so it's going to be a longer Planning Commission meeting than the 11th won't work because neither one of the people from Paschik can make it that day. So we're looking at the day after the Planning Commission, which is the 5th, or the day after that, which is the 6th. So we still want to continue that idea of having
Town hall
a.
is not available on the 6th.
It's not available on the 6th.
No, that's the
so.
basics, zoning beyond the basics, which is here.
Oh, that's right. Gee whiz, I should have known that. So it's the 5th. Yeah, we could have 3 meetings in a row.
So June 5th?
June 5th, if everybody's okay with it. I haven't talked to the Planning Commission because we had planned on the 11th, but we'll try the 5th if that's okay with you.
Is this tentative or for sure?
Tentative.
Okay.
I know that you and Paschik are available, and probably much of the Planning Commission will be available. Steering Committee, the steering committee's been involved in this the whole way through, so they understand what's being presented.
Would you then be looking for a public hearing in July?
Yes, we'll have to go, we'll be able to have a public hearing in July then,
For adoption in August.
and then hopefully a vote in August. That's okay?
Okay.
Any questions by anyone in council? Discuss a proposed zoning amendment regarding the keeping of chickens, ducks, and bees in residential zoning districts and adding associated definitions. There is a draft ordinance that, but was this ordinance put on the website?
No,
Okay.
that wasn't. This is a sample ordinance adopted in another community in Allegheny County.
Right.
I had heard a couple of different comments made at various meetings concerning this topic, and I knew that Township had adopted this ordinance that we presented or supplied to you that's based on square footages within the lots rather than, some other ways that have been potentially considered. I brought this to your attention simply in an effort to try to get the process started if you want to consider this at all and maybe give you a jump start on the whole discussion, because this the sample ordinance from North Fayette was based on about 2 years' worth of work that staff and various interns did. So to try to eliminate some work on our part, figured that we'd give you a starting point.
Where is this? I can't find it. Is it in this packet, in the large packet?
It's in a big packet. These aren't numbered, so I can't tell you where it
Right.
is.
I mean, we currently have, and there seems to be some problem, but we currently have a 1341, section 1341.031. I have copies of that ordinance, that we have to work around or work with or work somewhat with, because that's already on the books, and we should consider that ordinance also. But going through this, like section 1, I went through section 1, and I have some suggestions, or do we want to entertain those now, or do we want to? I mean, this section 1341.031, it creates some of these uses as a conditional use, which means that council would have to approve each one, and I guess no one's really for that, or are they?
No.
No,
No.
most people are not.
Okay.
I think what most people want to do is to, at the very least, reduce some of that. You know, we don't want to come to council to have 4 chickens,
Okay.
or whatever they end up having.
Yeah.
We actually, going through our books on this, I found quite a few things I was questioning. You know, for example, we have constrictor snakes on this, which I bet you there's hundreds of them in the town. I know of multiple ones.
There's what?
So constrictor snakes is one of the things that you're not allowed to have in the town. It's not in 1301, it's in a different section. I don't even think
Public safety.
Public safety, okay. That's a good place. But I think what people in general would like to do is to be able to have a number of chickens no matter what size property. This is pretty much limiting most of the town from having them.
No, I don't think it does. I think it means
I mean, 4 and
from
5.
0 to almost an acre, you can have 3.
Okay.
Wait a
Yeah,
second.
that's the way I'm reading it. Yeah, so if you have from 2 feet or 1 foot to almost an acre's 43,
3,000
yeah,
square feet.
and this is 4,000. So anything under an acre, you can have 3 chickens. But then after that, you have to have additional acreage to have more.
Where are you
Right.
getting an acre?
Where,
In the ordinance,
In this ordinance?
in the sample ordinance.
I see 4,000 square feet.
Right, an acre
Yeah,
is
he's talking about-
4,300 square feet.
we have 43.
Four-
43,000
Oh,
square feet.
43,000, I'm sorry. I thought it said 40,000.
Well, an acre's 43,000 square feet.
Right, but I thought this said 40, oh, it says 4,000.
43,000 plus.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So if the lot is 4,000 square feet, you can have three chickens for every 2,000.
Is that the without the house, lot without the house, or a lot with
That's
the
the
house?
lot and complete.
That's a
Oh, complete lot.
of any property.
I mean, I think these should be restricted to R1 and R2 zoned residential areas.
This is, the whole matter is completely up to the council. I only
Yeah, I know, you only
supplied this as a possible
Yeah, well, I'm just
means to
saying
get things started.
some ideas there.
I don't have a duck or chicken
okay.
in this.
Or a B.
Yeah.
So should we
I
take
was-
this home and mark it up and then come
The
back?
sample, the sample
The
one here,
sample?
one.
Or see how to,
First things first, I'm not even sure we can do anything about bees, or a whole lot about bees. I mean, there's things that are saying,
Don't you
As long as we're not selling that honey.
Yeah.
right,
It's not
but,
commercial, we already permit it.
right, there are things that have said, try to keep it around to properties 30,000 square feet or bigger, or combined properties.
is that an art, is that
No,
art?
that's something else I found, when I was looking things up.
So the
But it
next
seems
thing-
like the state has not only regulations already, and you're actually required to be registered if you have a beehive anywhere. Cost of registration is $10 for two calendar years. The bee law in Pennsylvania continues to regulate the movement of honeybees, queens, equipment in Pennsylvania in order to mitigate bee disease outbreak. And there's actually a site that goes over it. I ran through that. I don't think we could improve on that. I think the bee thing is already kind of covered, in my mind,
What
under
is-
Pennsylvania state law.
Does it say anything about notifying neighbors?
It
in that?
didn't talk about notifying
Okay.
neighbors, it talked about some municipalities have opted to restrict beekeeping to lots larger than 30,000 square feet or combined lots over 40,000 square feet. So I guess if you and your next door neighbor both had a 20,000 square foot lot and both of you agreed on it, they would be able to get away with doing something like that.
Yeah, Steve, I think we probably would be able to regulate, I mean, maybe the transportation of bees or some of the things that are specifically preempted by that state law, we wouldn't be able to, overlap with, but as far as, things like lot size and things sort of similar to the way that the chicken regulations would be, in order to protect the health, safety, and welfare, that would be a use of property that's properly regulated under a zoning ordinance. We could look at it closer, and I have not looked at beekeeping specifically, but I certainly regularly see those types of regulations, like North Fayette passed.
So that would be adding even more rules to the.
Well, I have to tell you, from the healthcare aspect, I really like this 2F, which is that you have to come to the town to get permission to have your bees, and that the people that live within your neighborhood of 300 feet must be alerted. Because if you had somebody with a severe bee allergy as your neighbor, then I think that's legit to say you cannot put a beehive 10 feet from your neighbor's property if they die when they get stung by a bee.
So what happens if you have an apiary and somebody moves in?
Then they would have to know that that's already been approved there, and that would be part of the consideration of them buying a house there. The other thing that I like is this flyaway barrier. That's on C now, and that directs the bees to fly upward. I think there are some really good things in here to help be respectful of neighbors. I thought this was good.
Yeah,
So what we're saying is we are going to bring this back up next month after we've had time to look over the sample from North Fayette.
Well, one option could be too, since it's a zoning ordinance, if you want planning commission input, you're gonna get it at some point, but this would often be the time where you would, I know the planning commission's very busy, but if council as a whole, or at least a majority of council is interested in adding regulations regarding bees and chickens and ducks, it'd probably be a proper subject of planning commission review and recommendation.
That's going to be yet another month.
I like that. I know.
We do have a number of other zoning amendments that are sort of percolating too, that we have this omnibus amendment that, we've been trying to get moved forward as well. And, we sort of put that a little on the back burner with the comprehensive plan, because I know that's basically been all encompassing for the planning commission, so we don't want to overload anybody, but, we could kind of have this parallel with that, this isn't all that complicated. The devil's in the details, of course, like always, but, I think we keep them both moving once we get past the comprehensive plan.
So for now, we can tell people they can collect up to three ducks or chickens until we work it out.
Tell them just wait 2 months.
I've heard that before. Been waiting 2 years for the sidewalk.
I have a question on the bees. I thought you were moving on to chickens.
Well, it's all the same.
It's all together. It's all together.
All together, okay.
It's all together.
What is the, I guess I don't know too much about bees, but what is a flyway area?
It seems to be some sort of mesh net or something that makes them go that way.
Okay, they're in their hives, minding their own business, and what, there's some kind of net put around them?
There's a definition right there in the ordinance.
Well,
Did you read that?
An
It's right in
obstacle
there.
of man-made material and/or vegetation which directs bees in flight upwards toward the sky.
It's some sort of bee funnel.
well, I see that, but I wasn't sure exactly.
I'm just not exactly
What that really is.
One of the purposes of the flyway is, as Kim alluded to,
Bee
the
whisperer.
people who might be allergic, is so the bees aren't flying directly into the neighbor's house or toward the neighbor's house. Makes them fly up. They have destinations, but it makes them fly
Disperse.
over. Disperse, yeah.
It's above their hive, is that the idea?
Yes, instead of coming straight out and going straight across, it makes them fly up. I think it's usually, 6 feet now?
They're a bee stack.
They're trying to keep them from making a beeline anywhere.
There you go. You know what? That's exactly right.
But the miniature glass.
I also have some people from the beekeepers of whatever that are interested, if we pass this, to come in and do some education too, if people are interested in starting.
Good to have them help write the ordinance, too. There's a good group of people that will help write the ordinance.
There is. Their name is. So is that what we think? Do we want to push this to planning? Not planning,
You know, I would rather get it done quicker, but
do you have suggestions on how to rewrite it tonight?
I would think that we could have them by next time,
Next time?
next month. But I think it's gonna be at least 2 months, I think it's gonna be at least 3 months if we move it to planning. Which means summer's over, which means nobody gets their chickens this year, if that's the case.
Well, I
Or
mean,
their bees.
Even in a best-case scenario, if you were voting to adopt the final ordinance, next week at the meeting, you'd still be 60 days out from a public hearing, and then you usually wait for another 30 days to actually approve it after you have a public hearing in McCandless, so, it's
So
hard to imagine it working out this.
We've ruined, we've already lost the. All right, well,
Madam President, yeah, I'm anxious too to find a way for people to responsibly have chickens. I know how important fresh eggs are to folks. I'm just as anxious to make sure we protect the property rights of the neighbors and make sure that we have proper controls and rules in place. I know how difficult it is for us to enforce the current property maintenance ordinances, and we don't want to open a Pandora's box that we then can't enforce properly.
Especially this feces rules here, I think, I definitely think we need to do more than what is in the state.
I suppose I'm just disappointed since I first asked to get this on the agenda 2 years ago, over 2 years ago. And now we're
Yeah, I don't.
pushing it
we
off
have
to another group first. All right, well, at least it'll give us time to look at it.
And last, any questions in the, any other further questions? Any questions from the audience on anything?
The lady that just put the shout out wanted to talk about the chickens.
Oh, she did?
I just wanted to ask about the chicken ordinance, because I don't have a copy of it. Is there a noise, something about noise from the,
Roosters.
so no, I missed that, I'm sorry, I stepped out.
Well,
No,
it wasn't talked about tonight, but the roosters is definitely
that's the
in
noise.
the ordinance
and the
now.
Okay, that's what, I've seen others with the
They would
noise,
not be permitted.
no
Right.
noise, no roosters, okay.
And surprisingly, one of the comments that we heard when it was adopted in North Fayette Township came from somebody who said that they're a farmer, and they actually have more concerns brought to them about their dogs barking than the chickens.
It's the roosters that bother them.
Yeah.
Because the chickens don't really make noise.
The roosters bother the dogs, and the dogs bark.
Thanks for your patience. Lindsay Moore, Grubbs Road. I'm very excited about the possibility of having chickens, and I just wanted to respectfully ask that we be allowed more than 3 if we have 1 acre. 6 people can eat a lot of eggs.
Yeah, the way this is written, you would get over 3, but I would limit it to 5 chickens.
I would have limited it to 2 per person living in the house.
2 per person?
Okay,
That's where I would have started, under 40,000 square feet.
yeah. So just, think about it a little bit. I mean, back in the 40s, during World War II, they said, it's your responsibility to have chickens. So
Right.
Yeah.
how did we come so far? Thank you for your time.
Yeah, you. Any other questions? Okay, we received a letter of notification that Mr. Van has, a second alternative member on the zoning hearing board has resigned. And so we'll have to find a replacement for him. Any other comment, any public comment on any agenda items?
So we'll put this on the agenda to accept his resignation, and then once we do that, we can post this position.
Okay. Zoning committee meeting is hereby adjourned.
I call to order the Public Safety Committee meeting. First, the chief's report.
Good evening. This is the monthly report of the McCandless Police Department relative to April 2019. We had a very busy month, and we had several serious incidents, 2 robberies that occurred, both that were successfully solved and resolved. One of them was involving a juvenile, and another robbery of an adult near the Outback Steakhouse. Excellent investigative work was done, and the adult was apprehended very quickly, and the youth and the juveniles, there were several that were charged. I want to convey something that's important. The one robbery that occurred in McCandless Crossing, through the investigation, we revealed that it was a specific individual that was targeted. We worked very hard, and the business owner there works very hard with us in safety and security in every way we can. And this was a target isolated incident. It wasn't something where someone was going out and randomly robbed somebody. And I think that the public needs to know that and have solace in that, knowing that. And the owner there, Kevin Doherty, basically on a weekly basis talks with me, and he wants to do everything he can to make that a wonderful place to visit in a safe, secure environment. And but I wanted to let the public know that that was an isolated incident. We also had a devastating fire at Durham Court Apartments. We were seriously, greatly gracious that nobody was injured. I commend from the bottom of my heart all emergency personnel that responded, and especially our volunteer firemen and what they do. And volunteer firemen from each and every community came, and I tried to personally make sure that I touched base with each and every company that came and assisted us in our community through the reciprocal agreement to help. And it was very, very good. And the job that the Red Cross did and Beatty Technical Institute opened up their doors to the victims, and we were able to address them there. So these kind of things through adversity bring a community together, and it was really wonderful how everybody worked together. And I just want to read you a quick handwritten note that was written to myself and our police department. We wanted to thank you and all your staff, Chief DeSanti, with the help we received on April 10, 2019 at the Durham Court Apartment fire. Officer Shanahan spotted Katie's cat, on her balcony that morning and got help to rescue her safety. We can never thank all the first responders enough. There are certain people we thank in our prayers, and one of those people are our responders. May God bless you all forever for what you so thoughtfully do. Thank you, and it's various people that signed it. That makes the job all worthwhile, the appreciation of what went on there. We also, Sergeant Madden and myself attended the McCandless Community Easter celebration. Got to see the children. There was a very nice community event. Got to interact, and the children really enjoyed seeing Joy. Also, completed background investigations on police candidates. They have been presented to council for review. And I actually will get to Manager Grimm. I have some final background information I'd like to get to council. Respectfully, that's my report for this month tonight.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Next is discussion regarding enforcement of ordinance number 1486 along town, county, and state roads. This is about the signs.
About the signs. It's always about the signs. So anyways, I wanted to give an update. Officially, today's the first day that our objects in the right-of-way ordinance went into effect. The way our town charter is written, it's ordinance goes into effect 10 days after the ordinance is published. So today's the first day that it's been in effect. I have, however, been enforcing it in actually I've only had 3 violations that I've seen, and I've been able just to talk to people and get the signs moved into the proper location. So and the other part of this is that I wanted to update everybody that so far neither the state nor the county has given us permission. We've spoken with people from the state, and they have not given us permission. Apparently, since the last time when they gave us verbal permission, there have been a number of groups who want to police the highways and remove signs, and they were denied permission. So they're going to be very cautious about granting anybody permission, even a municipality. I was doing that verbally with the people that are in charge of signs in the right-of-way. Since then, Town Manager, Mr. Grimm, had written a letter to the Chief Executive to try to get enforcement. And we've also been in touch with the county and haven't been able to get, again, it's the same thing. It's like, yeah, well, we'd love to have you do it, but we have to have somebody higher up write you a letter, and that hasn't been happening. And again, Mr. Grimm is taking charge of that and contacting the county manager, his counterpart in the county. So the other thing is, it seems as though there's a little bit of misunderstanding on people's parts, some people's parts. The ordinance as written, and we had a lot of discussion about it, is that signs must be 3 feet off the cartway. The cartway, and we defined the cartway, I may have been a little negligent in part of it. The cartway is the white line on the road. And when you see that on state and county roads, the part that I was negligent about, we have those on a lot of town roads too. So it's not the base of the curb, as I said, it's the white line. But that being said, it seems as though virtually every sign that I have seen so far, someone just pointed out there might be one that a judge has that might be too close. Even given that, and I'll have to go, we'll measure that tomorrow.
What if there's no white line, Bruce?
Then it's the base of the curb.
Which is right before if it's an asphalt curb, which most of them are, I guess.
Yes.
It would right where that takes off and goes up.
Yes.
Where the flat road meets that curb.
Yes. And if it's a city curb or a straight face curb, it'd be the base of the straight face curb. But that's the way the ordinance is written, is 3 feet from the cartway.
But that was based on our assumption that the cartway was the end of the paved road. So that makes it null and void. I mean, because that just means signs can be right on the edge of the road then. So we wasted our time.
Well, the cartway is the cartway. I mean, it's where you drive. It's the cartway.
We talked about that.
Not from the white line, that was never.
Well,
told to
no,
us.
not from the white
Never.
line. We talked about the place where the cars drive.
We talked about, where the edge went up, that was the edge of the cartway.
Well,
It was
and that's the
3
case
feet
in the
from there.
town, that's the case. In 90% of the time, that's the case. But state roads and county roads, it's the cartway is the drivable area. A lot of the state roads don't have curbs, or county roads. Some of them do, but not all of them.
So I received a bunch of calls with questions and, just clarification. Is there a way we could print up like a map and highlight the areas where they can't put them? Just because that was actually a suggestion one of the school board members made, so.
That's a great idea, and one of the reasons I wanted to bring this up is I was trying to write something up for our Facebook page in our town, and it was very difficult to do. And the other part, there are a lot of difficulties in enforcing this. It's like, even if we were able to enforce it within the right-of-way, what is the right-of-way and where is the right-of-way? Do we actually need surveys in order to do this? Because streets aren't always in the center of the road. And one example, which is an example of something we don't want, but is happening, is the exit ramp off of McKnight Road onto Ingomar Road. If that is partially private property that is owned by Rave Cinema. So we've got that, and it's like, where does one end and the other begin? It looks like what we said was an island, but it's not. That is actually partially private property. And I have absolutely no idea where the private property ends in the state. If we were allowed to, given permission to enforce it, I wouldn't have any idea where to enforce it from. So that being said, the idea of the map, I think might be a good one. It's going to be hard to see on a website, very hard to see. People have trouble, but you might be able to blow it up. John's been very good at being able to come up with those, how we can do that.
So, the manager of Franklin Park, the mayor of Franklin Park, Mr. O'Keefe, said they have no problem with this. They pull the signs up, period, and they have the people pick them up. They said that they don't, that's what they do.
Okay.
That people are allowed to put signs on their own property, and they're not allowed on the sides of the roads. And he said they just pull them up.
Well, we had that discussion, and at least two people on council said that they didn't want that to happen because they're talked about state roads, and they didn't want that to happen on that part of the state roads. Ingomar Road was brought up as one of them, and Carolyn, you brought up your front yard. You wanted, because we were going to be probably 12 to 13 feet into your yard. So that was specifically discussed, and that's where we came back to the 3 feet.
And the Realtors Association was quite adamant they did not want someone touching their sign without prior notice.
So Gavin, I don't know if you want to speak to the part about just picking a sign up and removing it. I've heard from other communities also, and they said that they will not touch signs.
I mean, it's tough, and I think, you know, the majority of council certainly wanted to, I think, take a more conservative approach when it came to that. I think because what we originally drafted essentially precluded signs in the rights of way. I think that was what was originally presented, and that was, you know, clearly not what the majority of council was looking for. And it was, and there's some, there's kind of two sides of it. The plus of that is it's although defining where the right of way is still a little bit tricky. It's clear that, hey, look, nothing in the right of way, you yank it out, and it's a little bit more easy to enforce. But at the same time, then you also have, you know, the private property interests and the First Amendment interests that I think if council wanted to go that direction, which is why we originally presented it, you'd be okay. But the concerns of council were heard, and that's why those revisions were made. And in order to kind of balance that, it does make it a little bit trickier from an enforcement standpoint. And we do have several steps in enforcement before you would remove signs. We had, you know, multiple written warnings. So, you know, it's a little bit more of a process, but you know, you erred on the side of sort of protecting the private property rights and speech rights versus, you know, kind of anti-clutter regulations. So that's, you know, Bruce is doing the best, Bruce and Jeff are doing the best they can, sort of on a case-by-case basis a little bit, because, you know, as you said, the cartway is a legal term, and it is where the vehicles drive, but a cartway on one road, you know, might look differently than what the cartway is on another road. So it's, even that aspect of it is tricky. So, yeah, I think the illustration's a good idea. Maybe show a couple different types of roads blown up in a highlighted area, sort of where it's prohibited. If we have the technical capability of doing that, I'm happy to weigh in on that too.
It's a good idea. I think that's an excellent idea to try to clarify it. Again, Gavin just said, it's not how we started off, but that's how we ended up. And the other thing is, I don't think if we do find them too close to the right-of-way, rather than go through an enforcement procedure, I don't think anybody would mind if I just picked it up and measured it and put it 3 feet away. I don't think anybody would have a problem with that.
And also, to be clear, if we do determine that there's a traffic safety impact, you know, there's not, that procedure is not required. We will pull those out immediately.
So some of the clear things are if it's on a utility pole or structure within the public right-of-way, and we did have one of those. But the people that put the sign up were quick to remove it once I brought it to their attention. So you weren't allowed to do that.
It was just a clarification. I know we've talked about this enough. I don't want to go through things we've thoroughly discussed before, but just refresh my recollection, if you would, please. Some neighborhoods have the cartway, the curb, and then a green grass area, and then a sidewalk, and then whatever they've got beyond toward their home, if that's the case. Which is the public right-of-way in that kind of a situation?
Public right-of-way, generally speaking, on a standard street with a 50-foot right-of-way is 25 feet from the center of the road, or 12 and a half feet from the back of the curb.
That would include the grass area then?
That would include the grass area. If there's a 4-foot grass strip and a sidewalk, a lot of time it's behind the sidewalk is the right-of-way.
So that, you'd end up being prohibited from placing a sign anywhere other than, I would say, well within the grass area beyond the sidewalk. Is that right?
Well, the way the ordinance is written right now, it only has to be 3 feet out of the cartway.
3 feet out of the cartway would put you smack dab in the middle of a concrete driveway in many instances.
Sidewalk.
Sidewalk.
Yeah, obviously you can't block a sidewalk. That
Yeah,
would-
well, I mean,
So-
obviously,
So it would have to
what's
be in the
answer
front
to that?
yard.
So you'd have to put it
on the other side of the sidewalk.
Right.
On the other
So-
side of the
So
sidewalk.
if you have a sidewalk,
Some of our strips are 4 feet, some of them are 3 feet, some of them are zigzagging around trees and things like that.
Placing a sign in, it would be ridiculous to suggest putting it in the concrete driveway, but you'd be forced to move it beyond the driveway.
It has to be-
I keep saying driveway, I mean sidewalk.
Sidewalk,
So
yep.
it'd be like this sidewalk, right there, grass.
But how far, that's the question.
Well, it depends how wide your sidewalk is and your grass.
right.
Can't be within 3 feet of the cartway.
It can't be within 3 feet of the curb or cartway. It can't be blocking a sidewalk. You can't block a sidewalk that exists.
So it has to be in your front yard.
Well, because the 3 foot is probably an impossibility in most instances, because you got the sidewalk sitting there and then.
Depends, yeah, in most cases, but it depends on where you're at. I mean, if you look at the right of way on McKnight coming down, or 19 coming down the hill, sometimes it's 15 feet from what I would call the fog line, which is quite a ways back.
Who enforces this again? Is our position that if we see a violation, sign would be.
A designated person from the town.
Would remove it or just take it out of its place and put it?
Contact the owner,
We give written warnings.
give written warning, like he's saying, just move it back to 6 inches or 3 inches or whatever it takes, depending on where it's at. Unless it's in a safety zone.
Yeah, and if they pull it, they'll keep it here.
Yeah.
So far, there hasn't been a problem it's been one contact and they're moved. It's only happened 3 times. One was on town property, it was immediately removed. And one was attached to a street sign, it was removed the next day, and another one was too close and it was moved back the next day also. And all that took was contact. Okay,
So the only thing that I wanted to accomplish with this was when PennDOT cuts the grass, they just mow down the signs. And then there's wire and there's debris on our road signs. And that was the only thing I was trying to fix. And I don't feel like this accomplished that. So I'm disappointed about that, because all these signs that are down under the clover leaf, that are up along McKnight, when they mow, it's all gonna be trash that we're gonna be picking up on cleanup day.
And
Can I say something about that? They were actually mowing the cloverleaf today, and the guys were weed whacking around the signs. And the mower went around, I watched it,
Oh,
kid
well,
you
that's
not, I'm
awesome.
like, look at that. I'm
That's
like,
a new one.
There was
Awesome.
at least 3 signs they did not mow over, and the guy was there weed whacking around.
That's
So
not-
maybe they know about it now.
I'm sure that's a special treat
That
just
was
for
a
this
special
time of
team.
year.
It was a special team, must have been. Must have been, yeah, must have been. But that's what I was trying to accomplish, and I don't feel like that was, I don't think we succeeded
well,
with that, did we?
especially since the state hasn't given us permission yet.
Okay, perfect.
I think once we hear from the state, then we'll have that guidance, state and.
And we will go into we will go into the islands, because the islands, I don't think we have the 3-foot issue. It's because there's no private rights involved in that. That's purely public, it's surrounded, except the question mark over with the exit off of McKnight Road by Ingomar, because that is also, the island is largely owned by a private property owner.
You're talking about inside the cloverleaf.
No, this is on the outside.
Because it goes on at least on Google, it looks like it's 5 or 6 foot, just like close now, but it looked like it was several feet away.
The guy invented the Pap smear. He just had one there.
Right.
It's a
Here we
Google.
go. You're talking about this edge right here? Correct? Yeah, come on.
Yes. Yes.
You see it? You
Can't
see
tell
the-
if that's the right, I see the roadway, or I don't know
That's-
if it's the right of way or not.
Well, Steve, the rest of us can't play.
Yeah.
Okay,
What he's
we're left
showing
out
is
here, can we?
Yeah, Yeah, what he's showing is he's showing exactly what I'm trying to say, is that it looks like that's all private property outside those lines that are on there. I don't know how accurate the right-of-way width is on that Google, but
It's very close on mine.
the right-of-way is pretty close to the.
When I measured my own house, because I know where my pins are, it's within a couple inches for sure. In my particular case, I'm sure that there are places where it's not quite exact, but.
You mean the 12 and a half
That's
feet?
like 5 feet into my yard.
Oh, just 5 feet? Then that's not
Yeah,
very
it's
far.
real close to 5 feet from the cartway into
Yeah.
my.
Okay.
into my
It's
yard.
usually longer than that. It's usually 12 and a half feet. If everything's centered, it's 12 and a half feet back.
Right.
Because you figure 24 feet road width, and so
I
you
think I
got
only have
12, and then you get the other 12 and a half.
Right.
And you got the 6-inch back of the curb.
We probably have one of the narrower
Could be.
right-of-ways.
I don't know what your street is.
Okay, so, any public comments on this?
Yes, I have a question and a comment. Again, Jeff Jesurik, Oak Ridge Drive. Did any of you address the removal of the signs tonight? Like when they have to come down and who takes them down? Because my sense is they're often left up in our township too long. And then I think the road crews probably just say, we don't need this here, and then they get sloppy. That's my guess, but I could be wrong.
That existed previously, or at least that's what I was told when I ran. We get taken down in 3
Should be
days.
responsible of the person who put them up.
Right. I was told you had to take them down in 3 days. Mine did.
Any other comments?
I just want to remark, Grubs Road, that.
You have to come up to the microphone, we can't hear you.
Yes, okay, I just want to say, thanks for passing that ordinance. I think our township looks lots better with that being passed. It just seems like we have much more dignity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it, then, this closes the Public Safety Committee meeting.
Call to order the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting. You have your checklist of bills, number 5, dated April 4th to May 8th, 2019, totaling $1,750,312.45 is submitted to each member of council and posted on the bulletin board and the town website. Any comments from any council about this? I'm hoping with a new finance director that we can perhaps get our bill listing a little more usable presentation. Discuss amending number 1466 to include the mutual aid fire departments as obligated as eligible entities.
This item came up as a result of a couple of requests that the town had received from residents who are members of a fire department other than Highland Peebles or Ingomar. Those are the 3 departments listed in Ordinance 1466 currently. Those members are eligible to receive the earned income tax credit permitted under Act 172. In my research, there had been some correspondence between the former town manager and one of those firefighters indicating that any changes in the policy would be required to be done through an amendment to the ordinance. And he suggested in that letter that it would be considered at some point in time during 2019. That's why I brought this up today. I don't know whether the council wants to consider amending the ordinance as it stands right now. to permit residents who are members of other departments to participate in the credit or not. It was simply a matter of bringing it to your attention so that you can consider whether or not you would like to do this. We've supplied you with information in terms of the mutual aid departments that work with our departments currently, as well as the call volumes in terms of what we provide in mutual aid to those other departments, as well as what they provide to the town. So I think at this point, it appears as if our departments supply much more mutual aid outside community than the other way around. And, you know, if that's a consideration, that's consideration. You know, the whole idea of Act 172 was to provide incentive to residents to volunteer. It didn't get really specific about where they volunteer, and every community is just a little bit different in how they approach things, so I just wanted to bring that up.
How many people are we even talking about?
I mean, right now, I only know of a couple that have broached the subject.
I mean, it just seems odd that if you lived in McCandless,
You would
you'd be a firefighter for
Well, I mean, as,
Ross or
Maybe
something.
they just moved here.
as Dan Stack and I discussed this, and you run into cases where somebody who may be living in McCandless but just over the line may actually be living closer to a Ross department than they are one of their own. I don't know the dynamics of that at this point.
So, Madam Chair, what I'd like to do is bring this to the Fire Department Steering Committee along with Carolyn and discuss this matter and discuss what reciprocity may be engaged in to do this to be fair to our municipality, our taxpayers, but also likewise to encourage volunteerism on our borders.
That's what I was wondering, what their thoughts would be too.
So if we could be indulged to take that to our steering committee, we'll do that.
I think that's a great idea.
My intent was simply to make you aware of the request.
So notified. Thank you.
Okay, discuss a resolution to adopt a definition and statement of intent regarding the application of sustainability principles to the town of McCandless. As part of our sustainability certification, there were some things that we needed to add to our ordinances or resolutions, and this was one of those. And there it is, it's in your pack there, you read it, and it is just a basic intent to practice sustainable principles and what that actually means. Are there any questions about that?
Just one, was this developed by the EAC as part of their work on the sustainability certification?
No, this was something that was part of the town's responsibility. They have 24 of their own points that they have worked on, but this was part of.
Oh, the larger picture of the sustainability
Right.
accreditation.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just one of the numbers, of the big amount of numbers, things that we have.
One of the boxes to check.
One of the boxes, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So, it seemed like a pretty good, definition to me. Any comments or something that we can put on to adopt the next, business meeting next week? Is it okay? Okay, sounds okay. Discuss the proposed minority business enterprise policy for purchasing contracts.
Do we not already do this?
Which this?
This minority business enterprise, are we not already aware of this?
What this is, what you're supposed to do is show that this is what your intention is, and then have some measurable things to show that you actually are
So
doing
we have to be
that.
specific about it, is that what you're saying?
Right.
All right, this
right.
is what that's.
Yeah, sometimes we're doing a lot of things, but we have to document that we're doing them.
So we have to be specific. on it,
Right.
Getting the
not be
credit we
general.
deserve.
Right.
Yeah,
So
okay.
now, I don't know that we are doing this because I'm not involved in that.
Okay.
But that's what this would be, is that our intention to include women. It's not just minority business,
Sort of
but it's
fine
women.
tune when we check the box, we have to fine tune it.
Does that sound right?
Yeah, I
Is that
think,
it? Is that what we're supposed to?
what we would do would be, in our purchasing contracts, we would be including language encouraging contractors to use subcontractors who are either women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and have them document their efforts to get those qualified or certified minority businesses. And I mean
Be
minority
specific.
in a broader
Yeah.
scale.
So be specific on
Yeah,
what
be a
they're
little
doing.
bit more
Okay.
specific, have them document their attempts to secure subcontracts from other sources. Obviously, if we have a state or federal contract that has specific guidelines or percentage requirements, then we have to adhere to those specific guidelines. This is a little bit broader comment that we will do everything that we can do to encourage minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses participating in these contracts. And this is a first step, in my mind, that we can take, and then we can always fine-tune the policy as we move forward.
There was a couple of things, you want to write this, that I was looking at adding under goals, to say, the goal was to use best efforts to achieve as much participation as possible. Since we're, Allegheny County's goal is 13% minorities and 2% women. But, I'm not saying that we have to put percentages in there, but maybe part of that goal would be best efforts to achieve as much participation as possible. I think B, in the first blank, it would be what the town minimal bid is for, that has to be bidded. And then, a little bit more on the definition under 3A, and that is as opposed to holds a certification, it would be a kind of a bigger definition of certification. It would be certified by the PA Department of General Services or by the Small Business Administration, or must meet the Small Business Administration, I can give you this, Small Business Association's criteria for designation of a small disadvantaged business. So, Ed, you like some of that language?
Yeah, I think
Okay.
that tightens it up.
Okay, all right, good. Under minority person, under F, we gotta get rid of American Indian. That can't be there. It has to be Native American under F. And to just get everybody, we might say, and additional groups whose members are designated as minority by the Small Business Association, because then that covers anyone we forget.
Madam President, where'd this original document come from, this draft? Since it sounds like we're amending it as we go there.
Just online.
Yeah,
It was
came
just,
from a
it was just a
community in
place to
Maryland.
start, so we didn't have to start from scratch.
I mean, this is very important. I'd like to look at this more carefully. I'd like to understand how this expands what we're currently doing in exceeding expectations. I presume this is related to our sustainability certification as well?
It
Another
is.
one of the
Mhm,
requirements.
Yeah. I'm not, because I haven't prepared comments, I'm not comfortable amending it on the fly here. I'll be honest with you tonight. I think it's too important a document to do that. I'd just like time to
Yeah, and I
review it a
actually,
bit.
Mr. Kirk, I actually had taken a run through and I have some updated comments myself that are in another version. So I think I think it's just still a bit of a work in progress.
Okay.
You know, some of the definitions, we're
It's
actually
a good
we're
thing.
actually gonna pull out completely, just because they don't apply for the rest of, there's some formatting issues as well, so, yeah, it's still a bit of a rough, but, if you don't mind sharing this, whatever
If we
your
list
comments
this
were.
at another meeting where we can sit down and discuss all of it then, in more.
I think that's what we're doing.
Yeah, but I think,
No,
do you wanna push this and aim for a June adoption for the MBE?
If
Or do you
we're,
need
if
it
we're gonna adopt it, it has to be done by June.
By June,
Well, I don't mean by the beginning of June, it needs to be done by the end of June.
okay.
But, I mean, I wanna do it right, don't get me wrong, but that's why I was just kinda giving some of my comments to what was already put together, and then your comments, and then whoever else has comments.
I welcome your comments, too.
But-
I'd like to have some as
but-
well, but I'm not prepared
Right.
tonight to
Oh,
provide.
well, that's why we had this in the packet, so
Yes.
we could, you know, go over it some tonight, so we would do that. One more thing that I wanted to add too was, provide an annual report to the town of McCandless Council identifying the levels of participation during the prior year and updated goals for the current year.
And so when you say that's like a contract, who has that obligation? Does that have to be the town
No,
manager?
I don't know where it would go.
It would-
Okay.
This
You
was
just-
just, we just need something measurable, so we can know how we're doing and know
Okay.
if we need to do better,
Got it.
so.
Yeah, if you don't mind, maybe Bob taking that, or maybe scanning it, both of us, however you want to
Okay.
do that. yeah.
Okay. Okay, so those were some of my suggestions. Did anyone else have any suggestions? Anyone read it? Okay. Okay, discuss ratifying the recommendation of the town manager hiring a finance director, and assistant manager. So, I think we'll add that to next week. Seminars and conferences, there's a grand opening, 5/16, the Preferred Home Health. If you want to participate in that, please let Marie know. They are looking for an RSVP. Allegheny County Western PA Association of Commissioners has a golf outing on May 22nd, if you're interested in that. Alum has a golf outing on July 8th. If you're interested in that, I won't be attending either one of those. Zoning Beyond the Basics, which is going to be here on June the 6th. I'm going to be attending that. I think that might be interesting if anyone is available that's here at our town hall.
Who's presenting that?
Denny Pucco from Allegheny County and AJ Schwartz from EPD.
Okay.
Is there any is there any council comment on any of these? Any public comment on any of these topics? Okay, there was one more thing I did want to announce, and that is that we did not, that we ran our ad for a junior council member, but we did not have any additional interest. And our current junior council member, Michael, is interested in serving another year. Is that still correct? Okay, so maybe we can put that on to appoint him for another year. I think you get the summer off. I think you don't have to come back to the fall, unless you want to come.
Can if you want.
It's up to you.
And he's done a very good job.
He's done a
thus far.
great job. So,
Okay.
okay. And I think that's all that I have. So I close the Finance and Personnel Committee meeting.
Do you have any public comments?
I did.
She asked.
Oh, did you? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I'd like to call to order the Recreation Committee. Number 2, discuss a proposal to establish an Activity Advisory Committee. Any comments?
And again, this is twofold. I think this is a committee that would be coming out of the draft comprehensive plan recommendations, and it also dovetails to some aspects of the sustainability program in terms of community health, well-being, and the like. So I think that the concept of this, you know, whatever name is attached or created in this committee, would accomplish a couple of goals. One, be able to take many of the recommendations of the comprehensive plan, step further as it moves forward. Also, would be working on the quality of life, community health-related aspects of the sustainability programs. So, again, this is a starting point for discussion in terms of what we want to accomplish with this committee.
So this is forming a brand-new
It
committee.
would form a brand-new committee.
Mr. Graham, if I may address him, Madam Chairman, I guess what I read this, an activity advisory committee. A group of people are going to advise on, what are they gonna advise? I mean, I'm not getting the basic thrust of what this is getting at.
Did you read this kind of explains what they would do, and then this is the
I've been away for 5
responsibilities?
days. I just drove 500 miles today to get here.
Oh.
I did not.
You did, oh, okay, okay.
No, please point it out to me where it is so I can.
Okay, it's the last 2 pages of your packet.
Okay.
Um,
That's why I came in late. I
and
drove all the way from Duke University in North Carolina. 500, well, actually it was 496 miles. So, but this explains what it is.
Right.
Okay.
Um,
Without this piece of paper, it doesn't, not very clear, but I'll take a look at it and be better informed, be informed at all, I guess. Okay?
I have a comment. One, we keep talking about the draft comprehensive plan, and we as policymakers haven't adopted it yet. We haven't had an opportunity to thoroughly review it and make amendments to it if necessary. And so I'm glad we're talking about this, because you all know, as a member of the McCandless Community Association, how strongly I feel about community programming for the holidays and things. I know this is just a draft, but the membership here, there's a clear omission of the McCandless Community Association as a member of this, number one. Number two, these organizations are all doing a fabulous job in our community right now. I'm not sure why they have to become part of a government organization. We should be working to partner with them as opposed to try and drive their agendas. So I want us to have a discussion about this. I want to see community programming, but I want to see our nonprofits and our citizen efforts facilitated by us and not driven by us. My concerns and my comments on it for our first blush pass.
Any other comment?
The McCandless Community Association was on my draft. It was omitted in the typing.
Thank you for that. I know they were listed in the comprehensive plan, and that was much
They were.
appreciated.
They were.
Thank you for that.
That was an omission.
My comments would have been the same. Just-
One of the things that we had hoped to do is, when we adopted the comprehensive plan, and whether we do that or not, even though that's where this came from, even if we didn't adopt the comprehensive plan, which I can't imagine we wouldn't, based on the input that we got from citizens was about, there aren't enough things to do in McCandless, or what are the things to do, and where are those things to do? And one of the things when I suggested the electronic calendar was just one place where you could kind of find what was going on in McCandless. So when we were trying to figure out how to address all the needs that people kept bringing up over and over and over, and this is something that we just heard so much about, is, we need more things to do. And then when Patrick and Associates looked at the activities in the town compared to the surrounding towns, we found that we didn't have as many as the surrounding towns. So the goal for this committee was to kind of help organize these things and then be able to present them to the town. If like the complaint I've heard is there's no place to have birthday parties. Well, in talking to some of the people from CCAC, they have rooms there that you can rent for kids' birthday parties. Well, we didn't know that. So that's just one thing that came out of getting people together who know the resources of a community, and so that, people can know, it's not word of mouth, that we have a place. And then they can do an evaluation, as it says in here, and see, do we need more facilities? And if we do need more facilities, what does that look like? Does that look like more meeting rooms, a second story on this building? Does that look like opening up some of the buildings in here for small groups to meet? What would that look like? So that's, that's part of what, well, there's a lot of things this group would do, but that's part of what this group would do.
Okay, and thank you for that. And that's more, I think that speaks to Bill's point of just working on the scope of this and tightening that up, understanding exactly what they do, clearly. Thank you.
Any other comments?
So where are we on this?
It's fine to me.
I think it's a work in progress.
Everything's a work in progress. Keep going.
So would this group do the advertising on our website?
What kind of
As what you're saying, as far as looking for places or things to do, how would they send this message to the citizens in McCandless?
I guess that's something that they would have to figure out. I don't have all the details of this, but I know that we have lots of media sites, and we have our new calendar. So I think utilizing that would be a great way to help. A lot of these organizations don't even know that we have an electronic calendar, and if they were part of this, then when Friends of North Park does something, they can put that on the calendar, and then we can kind of try to schedule things so we don't have, things overlapping, and then everything happening this weekend and nothing happening this weekend, so we kind of,
So are we at the point where we want to advertise for people who are interested in being part of this committee?
we would have to adopt it
Or-
first. We'd
Okay.
have to make it, because
So
it's
we
a
wanna-
new committee.
We would have to put that on our
Yeah.
calendar.
Yeah, we would need to adopt
We have to adopt it.
this in general and then advertise for membership.
So Madam President, then, we already approved the community calendar. We all thought that was a great idea.
Right, we
That's
did.
moving forward. This is
Right.
not the community calendar. What was the origination of this document? Because again, this packet was the first time I saw this. I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to comment on it prior to this.
This came from the comprehensive plan.
Okay, this document here was developed by the Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee?
No, it was not. The comments were taken from it, and they were written down and then compiled here.
By whom, I'm asking?
I wrote down what everybody was saying, and that's how we
Okay.
came out.
All right.
with this.
Well, I just would like a chance for review and input of it, more than just seeing it in the packet this week. That's all I'm asking. That's why I think it needs it. I should have a chance, an opportunity to review that process and be part of it. That's
So
all.
what you're saying is.
We
you'd like
haven't even
more
adopted the
discussion.
comprehensive plan yet. Yes, exactly.
Any other comments about that?
I was just wondering how this would relate to the community day, committee. Would they join together, or would that fall under this? I'm just trying to understand.
Great question.
Really, if I may, I think
Yeah.
at this point, anything's really possible. I mean, they could be incorporated into one group. It becomes whatever this council wants it to be. Whether you call it a community life committee, whether you call it an activities engagement.
Yeah.
This becomes, the concept in the comprehensive plan draft is to find ways to provide programming to the residents of the town, to provide space, and that can be either through the town providing it or the town, in a sense, being a conduit between the people who need the space and those who have space to offer, or whether it's programming There might be programming that goes on that people may not be aware of, so we put it on the community calendar, or we advertise it in one of our other social media ways. So it could be a combination of those things. So it becomes whatever we want this to be for the community. So this is perhaps a work in progress, but there needed to be some kind of a starting point.
Right.
The president and I spoke a little bit about it. We wanted to put a draft together so that we could create that starting point. But now it's whatever we want it to be moving forward.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be the end of it. This is just, you have to start somewhere. Just like with the bee thing, we just started from somewhere, so we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. Because it takes a lot of time to just, we spent a lot of time putting this stuff together, so it could just be tweaked as opposed to coming from scratch.
I have had a chance to read this, and there'll be further opportunities to have discussion, but I think I would benefit from a discussion and sort of an oral explanation for what this is really trying to get at. I read this, but I'm still not clear from this reading, as I sat here, initial responsibilities, initial and ongoing location, assemblage, and prioritizing of community resources. Is the aim at this of identifying what resources the town has? I think, Mr. Grimm, I think it was whoever over there mentioned the birthday party space available in the community college building. Is that the kind of thing? Identify resources? Is that what this is about?
I think it could be identify resources such as spaces that are available to rent. It can be programming that is offered either through community college, perhaps LaRoche, maybe some of the local churches would have some type of programming.
So these people would go around and talk to all of these places.
I think that they
And assemble,
assemble the information and disseminate it
Identifying
out to the
activities that are
community.
available within the
that are
town.
already happening. See, there's, some people feel like that there's nothing going on in the town. And some people feel like, oh, there's a lot going on in the town. We just don't know what it is and where it is. So to say, well, let's just see what there is here, what's going on. And some people are like, we need a community center. And other people say, no, we have plenty of activities. So if we look at this and say, we really do, everybody's needs kind of are met, we don't need additional space, then, and look, here is the space, but finding those resources would take a lot of time for me to call, if I wanted to have a birthday party, to call all these places. And then it would save me doing that because I would have, this information would be localized. And this group, the example that when I was trying to explain this to some people is if people said, we want yoga classes, and somebody said, well, we have 2 yoga classes already and they're only half full. Oh, I didn't know that. Here they are. Or we have 2 yoga classes, they're full, and there's 400 people on the waiting list. Maybe we need to look into more yoga classes, but we just don't have that information all together to see what we need and maybe how we could do those things. So that's kind of what I see this group. This was the best thing that we came up with in the comprehensive planning meeting to try to meet the needs of all the input from all the people that we got. There were so many people that made comments about activities that we were trying to figure out how to address it. And this was just the best thing we came up with. If you have a better way to address it, I'm up for that, but this was the recommendation.
So my thought on this is that we need to have additional discussion. That's just my feeling.
Oh, yeah, it's not finished.
Yeah,
This
just
is just a draft.
Yeah, so we need to schedule additional time for discussion.
I think anybody that has comments or suggestions, jot them down, and then we continue the dialogue.
Well, Well, I also think it's a great way for example, our fire departments, they have event space I would never have thought about using. And Peebles can hold, 50 to 75 easily in their event space, and they rent it out for a minor fee, and it's one of those things that if we could put it out there, that might help to generate more income. I know Ingomar has some space, but I think it's more just for private use of their members, but whatever, at least we could help connect.
But if we
town
suggested
residents
the
to
idea
this.
to them, they may be open to
Yeah,
it.
they may, yeah.
And
I-
the other side of this is that if the town ever wants to get into the business of creating programs, this committee can be the eyes and ears in the sense of the community and say, okay, these spaces are available, and rather than go out and spend $5 or $6 million on a community center, at least get the process going, get your programming up and running in these various areas. Take the programs out into the community, into these areas, develop successes so that if the time comes to build a separate center, you've already built on a lot of success and you can move forward then.
Did anyone express interest in serving on this? I didn't know if anyone said that they'd want to do this or not.
It hasn't been put out.
Well, no, I mean at the planning meeting, I didn't know if anyone spoke up and said, hey, if we put this together, I'd want to be a part of it. That's what I was just curious about. I don't.
It doesn't matter if they did or didn't, we'd still have to
Well,
advertise.
it matters to me because my thought is because we have different interviews that come up and we only have 1 or 2 people, or sometimes no one from that ward that applies. And I want to make sure we have enough people that can fill this where, we put a burden on us all to get these positions filled. For example, I've asked so many of my friends to come to our planning committee meeting and we can't get them to come. But that's because we're all busy, they have kids, other activities. My whole concern was just to make sure we can get enough people, that we're not double dipping or making everyone, serve on this committee and that committee. Hopefully we get new, fresh ideas.
Well, I think if you start something like this, though, and it's successful, I think you'll then find other people who might be interested in doing something like this. You know what I'm saying? If it gets started and people are understanding what they're doing, then I think you'll have more people volunteer.
Well,
I know Amy still expressed interest from the library. I was trying to think of someone specifically, but she.
I think that this is a specific type of interest that maybe hasn't been addressed in some of the other committees that have been moved forward. I mean, my experience is that the people that have been involved in this type of a committee, whether you call it Parks and Rec or activities or whatever, they have a very specific interest for reasons, whether they have children that they want to see programming for, whether they just care about the community. But the mindset is a little bit different than it might be for an EAC or a technical advisory.
Recreational people.
Recreational people. And a town of 28,000 people, I feel pretty confident that you're going to get 5 or 7 out of that group.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, so we'll schedule this for further discussion, correct? Okay. Number 3 is update on initial sponsorship program for the proposed fitness court being partially funded by the National Fitness Campaign, which requires fundraising for the remainder of its cost.
We're continuing our efforts of contacting some of the potential major donors in this regard. And I spoke to some communities that have used the patronicity program in order to do fundraising. Those people that I spoke to spoke very highly of patronicity and encouraged us to move forward with it. The whole program went very well. They were successful in their efforts. There's a couple of different ways of approaching it. One would be to secure matching funds, but you have to reach the goal in order to get any of the matching funds. The other is just to establish a program, and then you would get whatever monies have been donated. You would still set a goal, but you wouldn't apply for the matching funds. You would just get whatever donations came in through that effort. But they spoke very highly of Patronicity and the help that they provided, and I haven't found any reason not to try it in that regard.
Okay. Anyone else on council have comments?
I just have a question, one question. Patronicity, is that an organization, or what is that, a noun? I mean,
It would be similar to what are some of the online
GoFundMe.
crowdfunding?
GoFundMe.
Yes,
But
crowdfunding.
crowdfunding type approach, but it's geared more towards like a public sector recreation.
But is it, Bob, is it a group? Patronicity, is that?
It's essentially an online fundraising tool.
Okay.
Yeah. Like GoFund, like a
Like
GoFundMe.
For communities.
Yeah.
Yeah, for communities.
Urban gardens and
Yeah.
parks and parklets and
We could even do GoFundMe too.
BMX
It's
trails.
actually the company that hosts it.
People become patrons
Patronicity
of
for
the
you.
library.
Right?
People become patrons of the library.
Right.
But you want a
So-
BMX trail for you, right?
You want to be what?
You want one of those BMX trails.
Well,
to
there you go.
practice on.
I'll be first.
So I think it would be worth using them as a
They've
potential.
got a track record. They got a
They-
website we could look at, I presume.
Yeah,
Yes.
they do, and they, from talking to these other communities, they spoke highly of the process and the group.
Okay. Okay, and number 4 is to update regarding Heritage Center electronic sign. We have decided that in our discussion, the sign would probably be about 2/3 from where Ingomar Road is down to the building. And we would need a variance in order to put that sign there. It would not just be a sign for the museum. It would also be another way to pass information along to citizens of activities and things that were happening at the town. Meetings, social activities, anything else that's going on. So there would be information about the museum, but inserted in there also would be the information about activities at the town. The MIDA is considering helping with the cost of it. And we do have a signed budget that we possibly could use, I was told, that we possibly could use a bit of money there to help pay for it. We are now in the process of getting prices from different companies. for
Joanne,
that.
may I ask a quick question?
I'm sorry.
I'm on the MIDA, I've not heard anything about it. The MIDA doesn't generally give money to people, it's a vehicle to provide a favorable tax climate for other people borrowing money, such as LaRoche we recently discussed. But, what is the MIDA? What do you understand?
Well, they apparently have discussed with someone from that.
Who's they?
Well, the
I know I'm
committee,
on there.
someone from the museum committee has discussed with someone on the MIDA that they said there was a possibility they might be interested in helping.
Well,
with
I
the
don't know what
cost
kind of
the
vehicle
sign.
that would be. If I may I follow up, since that is the one
Certainly,
committee that
certainly,
might,
yeah.
and try to find out what's,
Can I ask something? So, I understand having these signs at intersections where there's traffic lights, but right out here, I just don't know how people are supposed to drive down the road and read a sign, like without running off the road, or just because of its.
Okay, if I tell you the one that's in
Safety
Franklin Park, that as you're going, what do I wanna say?
2910?
Right, yes, you know the sign that's there that
Yeah.
kinda lights up? Well, instead of being a horizontal sign, they're talking about it being more vertical, so that it will be more noticeable. And they're thinking that Ingomar Road is so busy that it would be a good place for, information.
Joanne, would it be, if I may, just one quick other question, something with the sign as envisioned, be something similar to the North Allegheny sign that's up there on the flats, right in front of the entrance to North Allegheny?
Not way up high like that.
No, but it's got, it's an informational type sign.
Yes.
Well, that's what we're getting prices on
Yeah.
that.
And they have one at McAllis Crossing, but my whole point is, like, I happened at McAllis Crossing when I'm at the lakes, you got some time, you do happen to see it, but just here, we don't have traffic lights to stop you and to, my whole point is, how many people are gonna have to drive by and read it, you know, you're gonna buy it, it's a split second. Really, how much money we're gonna spend on something where you're not gonna have enough time to read it? And to be honest, are you gonna run off the road if you're really reading it? Because how are you eyes on the road, but yet you're reading a sign that's not at like a stopped intersection? So that's my concern. To be honest, I think it's a little bit too commercial for the area too and in the park. I just think a sign that says the Heritage Center, I think that's a great idea because a lot of people are like, where is it? What is it? I think we do need some sign, but I just think this.
But we
The
felt
signs.
that, and I will bring your
Yeah.
concern, I will take your concerns, I have a meeting Wednesday again. I will take them back to the
Sure,
meeting.
thanks.
But one of the things that we thought is, if we were spending that much money, that the town should also benefit where we could do the advertising, you know, of meetings or activities that are going on.
Well, that kind of information, couldn't you just get it from the town, from the council's website? I mean,
Sure you can, but how many people don't do it?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
Toby told me we get a certain percentage of the advertisement for the San McCandless Crossing. What is it, 15%?
We get 15% of the
Yeah,
time.
so, and that's a much busier intersection where people can stop, because you're at the intersection, you read it. You're covering much more traffic than right here into the park off Ingomar, but.
What is this, is this gonna be like a lit electronic sign?
That's what we're hoping, depending on
Out
the
in
prices.
front of an 1800, a schoolhouse from the 1800s or 1900s? That doesn't seem like it fits.
Well, the problem is, what we're feeling right now is that people go by, do not know what it is.
Yeah, but I'm saying a sign would be fine, but I don't think an electronic.
Like,
Right,
Kim's
what
picture,
if
like a
we-
wooden sign with some pretty lighting aiming up on it or something with like a
Yeah,
little
something that
garden. Yeah.
is appropriate to this schoolhouse, which is from 200 years ago.
Well, we could
Not
do
an
this
electric sign.
almost for free, almost in-house or Beatty Tech
Yeah.
or.
Good point.
We've discussed this, we've even discussed talking to the Boy Scouts, you know, when they have to have
Boy
a
Scouts,
project.
yeah.
That's a great idea.
But,
But make it period, make it for that period so
but
it works with
But
that.
what we're thinking is, would they be able to build something that's big enough that will catch someone's eye?
I think so.
I would think 6 inches, 5 inches lettering, you could read, any normal person could read.
I'll take your comments
That's
back to the
fascinating.
meeting.
It's like the letters, the signage down there, it's the Serpentine Garden right there along McKnight Road that the WPC, the Conservancy has. And it's that wooden sign that's like
Right.
3 feet by 4 feet, whatever it is. I mean, that might be more fitting with the wooden to make it, you know, match, relate to it.
Yeah.
Well, I'll take your concerns back tomorrow or Wednesday to the meeting.
Isn't there, not a sign like it, isn't there a relatively, new sign that was put up identifying the Heritage Center? I mean, where am I?
It's just,
On Grove.
yeah,
Yeah, is that what I'm thinking of?
That's the only place I know
yeah,
of
that,
there's one.
yeah,
But
there's
does
nothing.
that deal specifically and only with the Heritage Center?
No, Heritage Center is listed along with the park.
Okay.
The ball field.
But I tend to think that the comment addressed it, getting out of sync with the period of what the building represents is probably better.
I'll take the comments
Yeah.
back to the meeting.
But some sign, I think, was just looking at old
fashioned
Okay.
No, I don't want it about here and painted. It would be easy on plywood.
I'd also like to ask for the EAC to be granted a booth free of charge at Community Day. You're on that committee, you're on
Right,
that
yes,
committee.
we have a
There's
meeting,
Okay.
we have a meeting tomorrow night.
Okay, will you put that down for the EAC, please, to have that,
There's forms available to fill that out.
to get a booth, a
Yes,
free booth?
Yes,
Oh.
not a free booth, well,
I want the form for
That's
the
what
free
she
booth.
wants, a free booth.
is there, oh, there is a free booth form? I didn't know that.
I don't know, free booth.
It's yellow, it's yellow.
Free.
Last year I just asked for one and they took care of me, so.
Kim, I'm not promising anything, I will ask.
We had it last year.
Okay.
And you gave little free kiddies, free previews for the kids.
Yeah, that's right, we have free stuff for the kids, and we're actually gonna do a, recycling, art projects that we're gonna have there, and we're gonna have a bottle cap, mural that the kids can also make, so there's a lot of nice things that the EAC is gonna be, bringing if we get a booth.
Okay, so you're gonna have activities for children, right?
Yeah, okay, she'll remember.
Okay, do we have any other comments from council? Any from?
I would concur on the Debbie Sagan, I would concur on the comments with the signage being a little bit too commercial, and maybe suggest that you go to the back to the architect. I think, I forget his name, but perhaps he would have some ideas for signage there, and I'd hate to, we were talking about safety tonight, and I think Carolyn made a good point of that. It is very somewhat dangerous on Ingomar Road because it is a PennDOT road and they don't sweep the road as much as possible, and sometimes there's debris on the road, and to have a sign also there to look at, maybe even something down at the corner. I don't know who owns that corner at Coomer and Ingomar Road where the old farm implements are. Not an electronic sign, but some kind of a signage there that would lead to the Heritage Center, if you know, across from the bicycle rental place. It's
We
just
on that, I'm pretty sure.
a little suggestion, and how,
Bait shop.
I would hate to have that sign
Across the
flashing. Ooh. It wouldn't really lend itself to our, no, thank you.
Plus, people pull out of Chubb's right there, there's not really a place to pull out, you can just kind of pull out anywhere.
Not by Chubb's, down further, across from bicycle.
No, but I'm just talking about the sign, people looking at the sign, people pulling out of places there. That's all.
Since we have a interview at 7 next Monday night, can we continue this meeting to avoid having to advertise an earlier start time?
You're the guy.
We don't, this is a non-voting.
Okay, so we'll just advertise it. Okay, we'll just advertise
Or
it.
start the one interview at just 7:30, hang it out.
I'll just advertise it.
We don't have an agenda review meeting. Do you have, junior council person, do you have anything? Because we're not having our agenda review meeting, I was just giving you the opportunity. If you don't, that's fine. No pressure. Good job. Okay. That's it. You wanna adjourn?
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, yes. If there are no other comments, that adjourns the Recreation Committee.
Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.